It was a blistering Monday morning in Washington, D.C. The Capitol dome gleamed in the early sunlight, but beneath the marble exterior of the Rayburn House office building, political tensions brewed like a storm ready to strike. The chamber was packed, not just with representatives, aides, and press, but with electricity. Something big was about to happen. The House Oversight Committee was set to reconvene for a high-profile hearing on government accountability, but rumors had already begun to swirl that this wouldn't be just another day of partisan bickering. No, word had leaked that Representative Matt Gaetz, the firebrand conservative lawyer and former congressman from Florida, was planning to drop a bombshell so explosive it would shake Capitol Hill to its foundation. At the center of the brewing storm stood Representative Jasmine Crockett, the outspoken Democrat from Texas's 30th District. Known for her razor-sharp comebacks and fierce loyalty to progressive values, Crockett had become a liberal icon, a rising star frequently seen sparring with conservatives on national television. She was no stranger to confrontation, and this morning she came prepared to duel. As Gaetz entered the room, flanked by aides and a stern-faced attorney, reporters scrambled to capture photos. His reputation as a relentless investigator with a flair for theater preceded him. The moment he took his seat, silence fell like a curtain. Chairman Bishop gavelled the hearing into session, running through a dry introduction, but all eyes were on Gaetz and Crockett. The stage was set. Everyone could feel it, something seismic was about to go down. As the chairman opened the floor, Gaetz requested recognition. "Mr. Chairman," Gaetz began, his voice calm but deliberate, "before we proceed with today's scheduled questioning, I request unanimous consent to enter new evidence into the record. Evidence that directly implicates a sitting member of this committee in a coordinated cover-up involving misappropriation of government funds." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Crockett scoffed. "Oh, here we go," she muttered audibly into her mic. Gaetz turned slowly, his eyes locked on her. "Yes, Congresswoman Crockett. This concerns you." The room erupted. Cameras clicked wildly. Reporters texted furiously. Even the chairman leaned forward, eyebrows raised. "Mr. Gaetz," the chairman said cautiously, "you're claiming that a member of this committee, Ms. Crockett, is involved in a government cover-up?" "That's correct," Gaetz replied, sliding a thick manila envelope across the table. "And this dossier contains email records, internal memos, and whistleblower testimony that point to her office funneling federal aid, originally intended for small businesses during the Trump administration's post-pandemic recovery plan, into a network of shell nonprofits operating in Dallas County." Crockett's eyes narrowed. "That's a bold accusation," she said, her voice rising. "A desperate one, too. You're trying to distract from the real corruption happening in this country." Gaetz held up a hand. "With all due respect, Congresswoman, the evidence speaks for itself. I've spent the past 6 months working with multiple agencies, including the Treasury Department and 2 independent watchdog organizations. And what I've uncovered is a pattern of manipulation, misreporting, and kickbacks to political allies who donated to your campaign. This isn't just shady politics. This is federal fraud." The gallery gasped. Suddenly, what was meant to be a routine oversight hearing had become a political thunderstorm, and Jasmine Crockett was caught at the center. In less than an hour, the hearing room had transformed into a media-feeding frenzy. Clips of Gaetz's accusations against Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett were already airing across all major networks, from Fox News to CNN, from X, formerly Twitter, to TikTok. Social media exploded with hashtags like #CrockettCoverUp and #GaetzBombshell. The Capitol's press corridor buzzed like a beehive. But inside the chamber, the tension had only thickened. Chairman Bishop had called a recess to review the documents Gaetz submitted. Staffers hustled in and out of the room with laptops and folders, while members of both parties huddled in whispered strategy sessions. Crockett, now visibly irritated, stayed seated. Flipping through the envelope Gaetz had handed over with trembling fingers masked by a practiced poker face. As cameras captured every twitch and whisper, Gaetz stepped into the hallway, where a swarm of reporters waited. "Congressman Gaetz." One shouted, "What's your primary source for these allegations?" "I'll be revealing everything in due time," Gaetz replied coolly. "But I will tell you this, a whistleblower from within Ms. Crockett's own network approached me anonymously at first with internal memos and transactional data that were too specific to ignore. I vetted everything through proper legal channels. This is airtight." Inside the chamber, Crockett's top aide, Melanie Price, was frantically texting someone. Her phone screen read, "Tell him to stop. Now. He's going to bury us all." Crockett glanced over and snapped, "Is it him?" Melanie nodded slowly. "He's freaking out. Says we're not covered anymore." The group disbanded after the DOJ flagged that first grant. Crockett's face darkened. Behind closed doors, Matt Gaetz was preparing his next move. In a secured room near the Oversight Committee's office, he and his legal team reviewed video testimony from the informant, a former project manager at a Dallas nonprofit linked to Crockett's re-election fund. The video, time-stamped and digitally signed, showed a tired but determined man explaining how the system worked. "They used CARES Act funds," the man said, face blurred for security. "But once it reached the nonprofit, they cooked the books. The same funds went to host events that were essentially political rallies. That's where Jasmine came in. Her name was never on the forms, but the connections were all there." One of Gaetz's aides whispered, "We just confirmed. This guy filed a formal complaint with the Office of the Inspector General 2 weeks ago. DOJ hasn't responded yet, but the timestamp predates today." "Perfect," Gaetz said. "We'll make sure that video gets released, but only after the committee reconvenes." Elsewhere in D.C., word had reached the White House. President Donald Trump, already in a heated battle over federal spending bills and foreign policy entanglements, saw an opportunity. In a rapid-fire Truth Social post, he wrote, "Wow, great job by Matt Gaetz exposing the radical left corruption once again. Jasmine Crockett caught red-handed misusing Trump-era relief funds. Sad. Hashtag drain the swamp, hashtag justice now." That post alone sent shockwaves through conservative media. Tucker Carlson dedicated a special segment to the breaking development. Sean Hannity teased an exclusive interview. And on the left, the silence was deafening. No one wanted to touch the story until Crockett responded. But that silence wouldn't last. As the committee reconvened, Jasmine Crockett requested time to speak. "I reject the premise of these attacks, and I reject the idea that this is anything but political theater orchestrated by a disgraced former congressman and a conspiracy-obsessed ex-president," she began, voice firm. But she was interrupted. "Then you won't mind if we call for a subpoena of your financial records and campaign accounts going back to 2020? Gaetz asked, raising his eyebrows. Crockett froze. "You can't do that without a vote," she said, nervously adjusting her glasses. "That's exactly what I'm calling for," Gaetz replied. "Let's vote. Today." The chamber erupted once again. Chairman Bishop leaned into his mic. "All right, members. If that's what we're doing, we need to proceed immediately to a closed-door session. Staff, clear the gallery." Outside, the nation watched. Inside, the truth teetered on the edge of revelation. As the committee doors slammed shut to the public, the chaos outside only grew louder. Protesters gathered outside the Capitol, some holding signs that read "Gaetz the snitch," while others held "Crockett for prison." Political America had once again found itself trapped in a high-stakes, high-drama soap opera, the kind that divided dinner tables and dominated primetime. Inside the closed-door hearing, tempers flared. "This is nothing more than political revenge," Jasmine Crockett said, trying to hold her composure. "You're using taxpayer-funded committee time to act like a vigilante." Matt Gaetz didn't flinch. "No, what you call revenge, I call oversight. You've positioned yourself as a hero of progressive politics, but your financials don't match your rhetoric. Millions in aid redirected to events where you were the guest of honor? Campaign materials printed with nonprofit funds? Rental agreements signed by ghost vendors?" He tossed down a printed spreadsheet with marked entries. "Here's the breakdown: $480,000 in relief funds. Less than 20% went to any registered beneficiaries. The rest went to event coordinators, digital marketing, and consultants who've never held a 9 to 5 job." Crockett's allies on the committee scrambled to slow the pace of the hearing. Representative Jamie Raskin raised procedural objections. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez argued that the documents were cherry-picked and unverified. But Gaetz had come prepared. "We've cross-verified every invoice with FEC filings," he said coolly. "And I've already sent them to the DOJ and the IRS. So whether or not this committee decides to act, federal prosecutors will." Suddenly, the room went still. Crockett realized the fight wasn't just political anymore. She wasn't battling Gaetz or even Trump, she was battling potential federal indictments. In the White House, President Donald Trump was watching the events unfold like a maestro overseeing a symphony. "Put Gaetz on the call," Trump instructed his chief of staff. Minutes later, Gaetz stepped away from the committee room and picked up a secure line. "You're doing fantastic." Trump's voice came through, raspy and determined. "Don't back down. If DOJ won't act, we'll make sure the American people do. She's been protected by the media for too long. Time to flip the script." Gaetz nodded silently. He didn't always agree with Trump's methods, but their goal today was aligned: expose the corruption that had gone unchecked for years. Meanwhile, Crockett's team had launched into full-scale damage control. Her spokesperson released a statement. "These allegations are completely baseless and politically motivated. Congresswoman Crockett has always fought for transparency and fairness. The so-called whistleblower is a disgruntled former contractor with an axe to grind. But damage control couldn't stop the bleeding. Within hours, local news stations in Dallas were digging into the nonprofits Gaetz had listed. One outlet revealed that 3 of the organizations were no longer operating, their websites offline and physical addresses now vacant storefronts. The board members listed were nowhere to be found. CNN, trying to stay balanced, hosted a panel that quickly turned into a shouting match. "Matt Gaetz is using old-school McCarthyism," one liberal commentator shouted. "But the documents are real," a conservative panelist shot back. If this had been a Republican, the DOJ would have already filed charges. The lines were being drawn, but the most unexpected twist hadn't come yet. That night, a confidential leak reached Fox News, an email chain between Jasmine Crockett's campaign treasurer and a man listed in the Gaetz dossier, arranging a speaker's honorarium through a non-profit cover. The language was vague but damning. Tucker Carlson played the clip on his show. "The Congresswoman will receive a stipend via our mutual affiliate. Please list it under consultation and advocacy." The video cut back to Tucker's stern face. "This isn't just fraud. This is laundering." As if the flames couldn't rise any higher, Gaetz returned to Truth Social. "Tomorrow morning, more testimony, more receipts. And a special request. Jasmine Crockett, you owe the people of Texas the truth. Resign or be removed." Crockett didn't sleep that night. Neither did her legal team. By the next morning, all of D.C. was in a frenzy. The Capitol was swarmed with reporters, staffers whispered nervously in hallways, and C-SPAN was flooded with record-high viewership numbers. People weren't just watching politics, they were watching a reckoning. Matt Gaetz arrived early, clean-cut, confident, and armed with what he promised would be the final nail. A flash drive hung around his neck like a trophy. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett's demeanor had shifted. Gone was the fierce, fiery progressive pit bull the media adored. In her place was someone looking cornered, tense, silent, and almost calculating. Her team huddled around her, whispering rapid strategies, suggesting she walk out or even cite emotional distress to buy time. But walking out now would signal guilt. She knew it. As the Oversight Committee reconvened at 9 a.m. sharp, the chairman gave Gaetz the floor without hesitation. "Mr. Gaetz," Chairman Bishop said solemnly, "you stated last night you have new evidence. Proceed." Gaetz stood and plugged the flash drive into the committee's central monitor. "What you're about to hear is a recording. A private conversation between the whistleblower and an associate of Congresswoman Crockett. This individual was wearing a wire legally after cooperating with a joint task force under the Treasury Inspector General's office." He pressed play. The audio crackled, then settled into clarity. 2 male voices were heard. One was easily identifiable as the former project manager turned whistleblower. The other was one of Crockett's known campaign finance consultants. "Look, we did what we had to do. The money was sitting there. Nobody was watching. The feds were distracted with COVID stuff. You realize that's embezzlement, right? It's politics. Everybody does it. Crockett never saw the checks, okay? We kept it clean for her. She just showed up, gave a speech, took the photo ops, and bounced. But she knew. Of course she knew. Don't be naive." The room fell silent. It was as if all oxygen had been sucked from the chamber. The chairman leaned back in his chair, eyes wide. Even Crockett's most loyal allies, including AOC and Raskin, couldn't hide their shock. The weight of those final words, "of course she knew," crashed over the room like a tsunami. Crockett stood slowly. "That's hearsay," she said, her voice low. "A distorted, context-free manipulation of a conversation designed to smear me before the media. I want a forensic expert to verify the authenticity of that tape before this witch hunt goes any further." "You'll get your expert," Gaetz replied. But the FBI already has it. And so does the DOJ. They authenticated it last week. Someone audibly gasped. Chairman Bishop rubbed his temples. Congresswoman, given the severity of the evidence, we must now consider a formal investigation under House Rule XXII. Until then, I suggest you retain legal counsel outside of your current staff. But Gaetz wasn't done yet. One more thing, he said, clicking to the next slide on the monitor, a financial trail diagram. This shows the Shell nonprofits, the donor overlap, and the coordination from Crockett's district office. Every piece verified. If any of this is inaccurate, I welcome a lawsuit. He turned to her. Please sue me. Crockett didn't respond. She couldn't. Outside the chamber, news broke like an avalanche. News Nation, Fox, even MSNBC, they all ran the tape. Social media users across the spectrum were calling it the Capitol leak and demanding answers. Trump returned to Truth Social with another blow. Jasmine Crockett just got caught. Will the corrupt DOJ act? Or will it be up to we the people again? Great job, Matt. Meanwhile, within the White House's press briefing room, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt fielded a flurry of questions. Is the president planning to intervene? One reporter asked. Leavitt didn't flinch. President Trump has made it clear, corruption, wherever it hides, will be exposed. He believes Congress should act immediately and the DOJ should investigate fully. Behind the scenes, Democrats were in full crisis mode. Key donors began to distance themselves. One prominent PAC pulled funding from Crockett's re-election campaign. Even her mentor, Representative Maxine Waters, reportedly told close aides, if this is true, she's done. We can't cover this. By late afternoon, a new twist emerged. The Dallas Morning News uncovered that Crockett's campaign treasurer had quietly resigned a full week before Gaetz ever dropped the bombshell. The resignation letter? Dated. Digitally signed. And attached to it, a confession. As the resignation letter surfaced, the Capitol entered full-blown meltdown mode. The former campaign treasurer, Darnell Price, had penned a brutally honest confession that now circled the inboxes of nearly every political journalist in America. It read, in part, I cannot, in good conscience, continue to protect a system I know is broken. The funding schemes we employed during Congresswoman Crockett's 2022 and 2024 campaigns went beyond gray area politics. They were fraudulent. The nonprofits in question funneled money, evaded FEC scrutiny, and yes, Jasmine Crockett was aware of this from the beginning. I was ordered to keep all documentation off public systems and to use personal email accounts to hide the trail. The signature was notarized. The email headers were legitimate. And the attachments? They included payment receipts, invoices made out to fake entities, and internal memos requesting edits to grant language so it could pass nonprofit filters. Gaetz seized the moment. During a hastily called press conference on the Capitol steps with media lights blinding and microphones crowding around his chest, he stepped forward and delivered his closing strike. When the American people sent us to D.C., they expected accountability. They expected integrity. They didn't expect their COVID relief money to be used for campaign buses, VIP gala dinners, and political vanity projects masquerading as community outreach. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett lied, and now we have the proof. She abused her office, betrayed the public's trust, and helped drain federal relief into political war chests. And if the House Ethics Committee doesn't act within 48 hours, I will personally initiate articles of expulsion. The crowd erupted. Flashbulbs went off. And as Gaetz turned and walked away, a reporter shouted, "What if Crockett won't resign?" He paused mid-step, smiled slightly, and said, "Then I hope she's ready for prison orange." Inside Crockett's office, it was chaos. Aides packed up boxes. Her legal counsel, now flown in from New York, warned that staying in office any longer would only increase liability. One of them bluntly stated, "Your defense hinges on ignorance. Staying past today means you knew and kept acting." But it was too late. That evening, facing pressure from both sides of the aisle and a rapidly collapsing wall of media support, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett tendered her resignation in a brief, grim press release. While I continue to assert my innocence, I recognize that the current atmosphere makes it impossible to serve my constituents with the focus and clarity they deserve. I will cooperate with any and all investigations. Just 48 hours after Matt Gaetz dropped his first document, the showdown was over. President Donald Trump, never one to waste a political opportunity, addressed the nation from the White House lawn. Flanked by the American flag and key staff, he declared, "This isn't just about Jasmine Crockett. This is about the rot in Washington. The swamp is deeper than we ever imagined. But thanks to patriots like Matt Gaetz and brave whistleblowers who told the truth, we've exposed another layer of it. Let this be a message to every career politician still hiding skeletons in their closets. We are coming. And this time, America is watching. The crowd, mostly reporters and administration officials, clapped as Trump turned away from the podium, decreasing the aftershock. Within a week, Crockett's resignation dominated the headlines, eclipsing nearly every other domestic story. The DOJ confirmed a formal inquiry had begun based on evidence presented in the Oversight Committee. 2 Dallas-area nonprofits shut down their offices, erasing websites and social pages. 3 campaign aides were subpoenaed for grand jury testimony. A Texas special election was scheduled to fill the seat left by Crockett. Meanwhile, Matt Gaetz's popularity soared among conservative voters. Podcasts, late-night shows, and MAGA social media circles called it the second Benghazi, but this time with receipts. But not everyone was cheering. Progressive leaders like AOC accused Republicans of targeting women of color with political vengeance. Yet the mainstream media couldn't defend Crockett, not after the tape, not after the resignation, and certainly not after the signed confession. In the end, Crockett's fall was total. What began as a fiery resistance icon ended as a cautionary tale. Microphone final moments. 1 week later, Gaetz appeared on Hannity. Asked what he would say to Jasmine Crockett now, he replied, "I'd tell her she had a choice. To serve the people or to serve herself. And she chose wrong. But that's the thing about DC, the truth always finds a microphone." And with that, Gaetz walked off the stage. Not as a loudmouthed firebrand, but as the man who brought down a sitting congresswoman in just 72 hours.